All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe IMBRIANO, the Fullerton Informer, coming to you once again live back on the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. And we're coming to you live from the streets of Orange County, California. And today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2019. And there's been a several month hiatus on this channel for live streams because of the dirty deeds of another one of these operatives in the truth movement, folks. But I'm back, and I want to thank you all for your support and promoting the WIKIJOE channel. That's up, and we're able to stream on that one as well. So we've got two platforms, and the truth is marching on, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm glad to see the notifications are working this morning. I'm coming to you from Southern California, folks. Now, we've had a lot of focus on Northern California and the potential for disaster up there with the Oroville Dam. I want to talk to you today about those of you who are living in the Southern California area or who have family in Southern California, ladies and gentlemen. You know, it's no secret to those who know me that I do tend to take a short nap in the afternoon. And one of the nice things about these 20-year-old cars is the seat reclines all the way and you can catch a few Z's, right? And one of the things that I've always been, those who know me have been very familiar with me, is that I'm very sensitive to earthquakes. And what I've noticed for the past several weeks is all the time, almost without exception, every day, I'm feeling seismic activity during the afternoon and even when I sleep. But what I'm feeling is movement from the north to the south. You know, when there's a jolt, it always has a direction. Sometimes it's up, or it will like literally throw you up in the air. You feel like you've been thrown in the air. But in this particular case, I could feel movement from north to south. And what concerns me about that is that that is the direction that the San Andreas Fault moves in. There is a lot of seismic activity in and around the South Coast Basin right now. The Inland Empire has had hundreds of earthquakes in the past 30 days. The area around like Tujunga and Loma Linda, in that area. And of course that area is known for having fault lines, but it's active. They're small. There are a lot of little ones, right? And just today there was a rather sizable earthquake off the coast of California in an unusual place. Most people aren't aware. There's an island. It's about 60 miles out. It's called San Clemente Island. It's basically run by the military. And the thing is just all terraced, and it's just basically it's an offshore landing strip for a massive amount of military aircraft and helicopters. It's really trippy. You know, when you go out on a fishing boat and it's like a day-and-a-half trip and you got to San Clemente Island, you can see this thing is just, it's plateaued, you know, and it's got all these places to park helicopters on. It's really scary when you look at it. But there was a good earthquake out there today. I think it was a 4.2. That's a sizable earthquake off the coast of California. So my warning to those of you who live in and around Southern California, and those of you who live in and around the areas in which the San Andreas Fault could impact you, is you need to be prepared, folks. You know, I'm not trying to freak you out and tell you that the big one's coming. I'm not Fred Sanford to go, oh, Elizabeth, it's the big one, honey. No. I'm just telling you that we have a situation that we potentially face here in Southern California that could be potentially disastrous, especially if you're not prepared. One of the things that you must have in the event of an earthquake is water, because we will be without water for months, folks. The pipes will break. You need to have a good supply of your medicines if you're on them, and I wish you weren't, but if you're going to continue to take your medicines, then you got to have a supply in case you can't get them. You've got to have alternative sources of lighting, and you've got to have, of course, food. Now, listen, folks, you're not going to die without food. You know, you could live without food for, you know, quite some time. But you will die without the things that you're addicted to. So I strongly suggest you get off of the things that you're addicted to. That's one of the reasons why they've got everybody hooked on pills and alcohol and pot and all this other stuff, is because they want you to be in a position to where you'll do anything when FEMA shows up with the trailers, right? And one of the things that will happen if they do have a situation, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if this earthquake is a triggered event by some sort of Tesla weapon. One of the first things they're going to do when you go get your bread and your water is they're going to give you a vaccine, folks. Because that's one of the ways to get everybody vaccinated is in a bread line. So make sure you don't have to go to the bread line. Now, all the aforementioned items are worthless without weapons, folks. You've got to be able to defend yourself. You need to own guns, you need to own lasers, knives, whatever. I don't care if it's a hammer, baseball bat, I don't care if it's a blowtorch. You've got to be able to defend your family. Because there are a lot of people out there that are like animals. They don't care. They'll kill you if you have something they want. There are a lot of people operating in that mode right now. Many people are very, very deranged and debased, have no morals, and are literally just a few genetic codes away from being an animal. And you will see the worst of that come out in the event of a crisis. So you need to be ready for that, folks. I just have to put that out there. It's a very unusual type of seismic activity. For those of you that are familiar with the geography of the southwestern United States, there's a segment of land called Baja California, and it's a narrow finger of land to the west of mainland Mexico. And that is splitting apart, basically. If you look, it's kind of like opening, and it's opening all the way up through the Salton Sea, through Palm Springs, through the 10 freeway, through the Indian reservations. And now we've got the stress being released even further to the north, where it's getting close to Yorba Linda and Tujunga, and that, Loma Linda and Tujunga in that area. It is opening more and more, splitting apart more and more. The pressure's moving north. The San Andreas is in the path of that, folks. Now, this event that we had off the coast of California this morning, off of San Clemente Island, that is very unusual. And that kind of event is, to me, highly suspect. There's a lot of military. That's a military installation out there, folks. So who knows what they're playing with? Who knows what they're doing? But they could be up to something. So if you're in Southern California, or even if you're in the Bay Area, anywhere that you could become affected by activity on the San Andreas Fault, I strongly suggest you make preparations. You should be prepared 365 days a year for an earthquake, folks. If you live in anywhere within the vicinity of the San Andreas Fault or the New Madrid Fault in the Midwest, you need to open your eyes to the reality of what these things can have happen, and the impacts. Just like if you're near a dam, and you need to be prepared for a dam failure. You need to be prepared for a power failure. You need to be prepared for a lot of things, folks. And there's nothing wrong with preparation. You know, I go to the Dollar Tree or the 99-cent store, and I kid you not, folks, you can get bags of beans and bags of rice for $1. And all you need to do is get some of those plastic buckets from Home Depot and some lids, and get some oxygen absorbers online. I mean, you can get a big bag of them for like $10, and just stick them in there, and put them somewhere cool and not out in the heat where it's 100 degrees and not where they're going to freeze, but keep them, 50 to 70 degrees, and those beans will last you for 10 years. And it'll cost you $10. And you won't starve to death. All you need to do is have something to cook them with, right? And if you can't cook them, all you need to have is some water to sprout them, and you can eat that. I mean, you cannot be dependent upon the glaze on the Pillsbury Doughboy in the microwave 365 days a year, folks, because there will come a time when the microwave won't work and the Pillsbury Doughboy container ain't gonna pop. All right? I mean, come on! All right, I'm already starting. I'm back. We're back live again, once again, folks. And now I want to also go into a couple other things here. Since the 90-day hiatus that was placed on this channel by one of the operatives in the fake truth movement, who's obviously a NASA stooge, a NASA stool pigeon, if you will, connected to the hips of these organizations. I want to talk to you about the satellite issue with Elon Musk and, you know, the guy that put the Ferrari up there with the blow-up doll in it that's supposedly orbiting the Earth, right? Well, there's all this talk about these 5G satellites, and there's all this talk about how 5G is going to come from space, and there's all this talk about this EMF space appeal, right? I want to talk to you about Fake X, right? It's like, you know, there's all these people that talk about, oh yeah, they got these weapons up in space, right? And so they've got to have, I'm gonna go into a little discussion with you right now. If you wanted to, let's say, burn a hole through the hood of a Chevy Tahoe and, you know, basically melt the block of a 350 Chevy V8 engine from a mile away, you would need a laser that weighs about 3,500 pounds, all right? So if you want to toast a car from a mile away on the ground, you need a device that weighs about almost 2 tons, okay? And that's assuming you've got the thing plugged in, right? All right, so if they supposedly have these laser weapons from space, and they've got to go supposedly 60,000 miles, how big do you think the frickin' solar panel on that thing has to be, first of all? Maybe the size of a football field. And then second of all, how much do you think that stupid thing is going to weigh? And third of all, how the hell is it going to stay up there? Listen, folks, they don't have stuff that can get you from the sky. The people that want you to believe in the eye in the sky are the ones that don't want you to believe that you've just brought the stupid stuff into your house and you've let them put it in your backyard on the telephone pole. That's right. And there's a common denominator with all of these people involved in this nonsense. Look it up. Look at their names. Look who they are. There's a common thread with these operatives, okay? That's right. The lies in our skies, folks, the weaponry's all on the ground. Now, there are communication systems that bounce the signals off of the firmament, off of the dome. You know, I've been a shortwave guy for years. I will admit that back in the early 90s, I was a shortwave freak, okay? I had hundreds of feet of copper cable strung in the pine trees on my property. You know, 100 feet off the ground. And I would listen to shortwave from all over the world all the time, right? And it was incredible because, you know, I would hear guys broadcasting on these do-it-yourself stations. Like, for example, coming out of West Decatur, Pennsylvania, you could hear these guys are broadcasting in a barn. And you could hear the cows and the cowbells in the background, and they were just talking about home remedies and, you know, old school ways to stay healthy and just real common sense, good old boy stuff, right? And they were doing it off of a car battery. But the shortwave broadcast, they say, bounces off the ionosphere, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, the signals bounce off the roof, and the government has these supposed radio telescopes that are supposedly in these EMF quiet zones to you know, to look for outer space. I think it's called the SETI program. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the receivers for the big communication hubs to receive the signals that are being bounced off the dome. And that is how they accomplish a lot of the technology that people call satellite communications. Most of the stuff is point-to-point on the ground. A lot of it's cable. And by the way, for those of you who don't know this, I'm going to tell you something that you've probably never heard of, but there was a broadcast, I believe it was like in 1905, that originated in Europe, and it was broadcast on AM, and it reached the entire world. Now, that's an impossibility on a globe Earth, folks. But because we live on a flat one, enclosed by a dome, that's right, we live on a flat, Earth enclosed by a dome, folks, and they use the dome for communication. Now, anybody that promotes NASA and the lies of NASA is part of the controlled opposition, folks. Anybody that's got a spinning ball on their website or that's got NASA logos on their website is part of the cabal's agenda, folks, because part of the war on God is proving that we don't live in a closed system, because the closed system is the best evidence for the fact that somebody put us here and somebody put us inside here, and if somebody put us in here, that means that somebody is somebody, and they don't want you to know that somebody, because that somebody has some rules and they don't like to follow the rules. They like to live like the ghouls under the ground in the tunnels with the kids, and that's why there's all these children disappearing. You know, what's really disheartening to me is when I look at all these musical artists that spent their time up in Laurel Canyon back in the 60s and got renditioned and dealt with by the CIA mind control operators. And all these houses in the Hollywood Hills had the same tunnels that connected to the McMartin preschool. These guys actually ended up writing songs about children, and they actually sang them like rock and roll songs, and unless you pay attention to the lyrics, you would never realize what they're singing about. But if you do pay attention to the lyrics, and you realize that they're singing an ode to their pedophilia, it will make your blood boil. And it will also make you draw closer and closer to Jesus Christ, ladies and gentlemen. Because we live in a sick, evil world, but you know what? Jesus Christ has overcome the world. He overcame the grave, and that's why we have to continue to tell the truth about all these lies, all this disinformation. And we need to stay away from things that will bring us into bondage. As I go by a porno joint right now. You know what I'm talking about, folks. And by the way, and right down the street from that's a church, right? See, God has always provided a means of escape. You know, as bad as things are, there's always a bright light shining if you look for it, folks. As dark as things get, the sun always comes up. It never fails, ladies and gentlemen. Bad times don't last. And bad people don't get away with bad things forever, folks. All of this stuff is engineered and being foisted upon us. You know, Laurel Canyon was a big event back in the 60s to really take out an entire generation of young men and the women. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, back then we had an incredible economy and an incredible youth that was very handy and creative. I mean, we had a population that could work with their hands as well as their minds. You know, we had the tool and die industry and the manufacturing industry, and people could literally make things on a lathe with their hands, folks. And I want to tell you something. I got an email from someone last night, a really brilliant person. And he's right about what they've done to our youth, and we do not have the ability for men to create things with their hands like we used to. We had a generation of men that came out of World War II and after World War II, where the United States could make anything if they just had the raw materials and a guy with a lathe and a will and a way, right? And we had all kinds of incredible inventions and all these different machine shops everywhere, making all these things, making all these tools, making things to make our lives easier and better. And we don't have that anymore, folks. And, you know, Laurel Canyon was all about, you know, the Hollywood Hills parties, the tunnels under the ground with the kids, and all the horrible stuff that went on up there. And all these musicians came out of that, and they were turned loose on our youth, and look what they did to them. And, you know, there's you can look at the concerts from the 70s, and there's literally hundreds of thousands of kids, you know, in the baking sun with their brains baking on acid, just literally out of their minds. And I grew up in that era where I remember the teenagers on my street, they all got into drugs. They had their hair, you know, really long, and, you know, they were doing cocaine, and they were doing acid, and they were doing heroin and smoking pot, and, you know, they're goners, folks. You know, the drugs took them over, and it destroyed their lives, right? And, you know, they all got into the rock and roll with all this. And let me tell you something about that rock and roll, folks. Those lyrics, they're all, you know, really encoded with really heavy-duty stuff, right? If you read those lyrics, some of it's really prophetic, and it tells what the evil people are going to do to us. And a lot of it is, you know, really satanic, and a lot of it is really just about, you know, pedophilia and really evil stuff. It's nothing good. There's nothing good that come out of that, folks. It's really sad. And then on top of that, they changed the frequency of the music to make it a harmful frequency, right? They shifted it. And so what do we have to do now? We got to pick up the pieces as all of our kids are sitting there with virtual reality mind control Minecraft headsets on, you know, and they're on the Starbucks Frappuccinos and the energy drinks, eating licorice and ordering pizza, right? Staying up all night, right? Well, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, don't let your children ever get virtual reality headsets. And you need to shut off the internet, you know, after 10 o'clock or so. You need to get your kids in bed and get them to sleep, because you know, if they don't sleep when they're young, their brains don't develop. And that's part of the plan. In the 70s, they had the, you know, the rock and roll and the drugs to ruin the kids. And in the 80s, they had the really sophisticated drugs to ruin the kids. In the 90s, they had the really sophisticated sex and drugs to ruin the kids. In the 2000s, nobody was really thinking they were kids because the economy was falling apart and everybody was losing their mind. And now look, they've got everybody wired into the Matrix, right? And all the kids are wired into the Matrix. And they couldn't change a tire if their life depended on it, right? If you have children, ladies and gentlemen, you need to sit down and try to talk to them and try to reach them and try to wake them up, because eventually they're going to have to fend for themselves, because there will come a day when we're not going to be around just based on our age, right? I want you all to realize, folks, that there are no accidents in this world, and the things that are being done to us are all designed to keep us under their thumb, folks, okay? And their agenda is one of satanic bloodletting and worship, and it is accomplished with wars, with movies, with music, even with medicine, folks. And you don't have to look very far. The satanic bloodletting, it takes place in the doctor's offices when the woman says a girl in trouble is a temporary thing. And that's why they had a group in the 80s called Romeo Void. Romeo Void, right? You get it? A girl in trouble is a temporary thing, right? Conditioning the people to dealing with the creation of human life as an inconvenience, right? I could go on and on, folks. The one thing I can say that we could take away from all that's being done to us is the law of the universe requires that they tell us what they're doing to us. And they have to, because this universe is one of free will. And they have to tell us what they're doing. They have to tell us what they're doing. They have to warn us what they're doing. And they have to make sure that they have our permission. Okay? And they cannot and will not do anything to us unless they have our permission. And that's how they get away with all this, folks. They have to have our permission, and they have to tell us what they're going to do. And then we have to let them do it. We do not have to give them our permission. We can stop all this stuff, just like we stopped what was going to happen up north to the Oroville Dam by exposing it. We can stop all the stuff that they're doing, folks. We just have to call them out before they do it and explain what they're going to do and let everybody know what they're going to do. And then they won't do it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all there is to it. It's very simple, okay? We have to be aware of what their plans are, and we have to be not afraid to call out what they're up to and provide the solutions, okay, to avoid the catastrophes that they have planned for us. What are those catastrophes, folks? Well, I can tell you right now, natural disasters are disasters that are man-made. They're not necessarily natural. You look at some of the bigger storms and hurricanes we've had. Those were all weather-engineered events. You know, and then you have FEMA blowing out the levees during the Army's blown out the levees during Katrina, right? And why do you think those guys were shooting the helicopters? Because they were pissed off. They knew what they were doing. Look, folks, you know, when they engineer storms and lock everybody up in the Superdome and then go door to door and confiscate the guns, You know, that's just nothing more than you know, they leveled the whole place so they didn't have to have environmental impact reports and all these toxic waste remediations for all the oil drilling that they had planned to do over in the bayous, folks. And that's what they did. Now it's just a big pile of busted up houses and oil wells. And beachfront property went for pennies on the dollars to the guys that had the hedge funds money, right? That's just how it works. Anyway, listen, folks, this is a real simple deal, okay? We've got to be wide awake, not eyes wide shut. You know, we're not going to be in some Stanley Kubrick movie. You know, we're not going to be in the fake moon landing studios, okay? You know, in front of one of his special cameras. We got to be awake, ladies and gentlemen. We got to be awake. We got to say no. We got to keep our eyes open. And your eyes can't be open if they're glued to a television set, folks. All right? You got to get off the television. I'm going to keep beating that horse. The television is the most powerful weapon that these people have. All right? The second most powerful weapon these people have are the music videos and the music. Okay? The lyrics and the music is all mind control, folks. And so is the television. All right? I'm telling you right now, you got to shut those things off. You got to start reading. You got to start looking at the world the way it really is in its reality, folks. You got to go outside and pay attention to God's creation. All right? All right. Now, as it relates to YouTube, folks, don't go down the rabbit hole. Shut the thing off as soon as you're done. You know, don't keep watching videos all day, because it's amazing what pops up after mine, right? A bunch of nonsense. All right? All right. We're back. The Fullerton Informer is back live. Our streams are back up. You're going to be hearing from me twice a day again, folks. And, you know, just take it all with a grain of salt. But after you're done with this, I want you to do me a favor. It's really important. You guys remember this? It's been a couple months since we've seen it, right? How about this? How about this, folks? And the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunders and an earthquake and a great hail. Folks, in the book of Revelation, by the way, you know, this stuff has already been fulfilled. And his promises are in our midst right now. You need to do your homework on the first century history and the things that went down after 70 AD. Because let me tell you something, folks. We are living in a period of time where God has given us tremendous power, okay? He has given us incredible power, and his word is incredibly strong, folks, and you got to believe it. You see, the thing is everything that these guys that hate God, that these deniers of Jesus Christ are involved in, is all fear-based and trauma-based mind control, and pharmakia and sorcery and witchcraft. These are all abominable practices, abominations to God, and we have the ability to overcome all of these machinations. One of the simplest things that you could do in exercising your power is taking your index finger and pushing the off button on your television. Okay? Very simple. And then take that finger and push the off button on the Wi-Fi. And take that finger and push the off button on the radio. And stop listening to the stupid news channels that are giving you the sports and all the same nonsense and political nonsense and political rhetoric and the political idiocracies with this phony left-right paradigm and all this kabuki theater in Washington, D.C., and all these names of supposed government officials that are actually trying to do something. They're not doing anything but exercising you and playing you for a fool, folks. You need to hardwire your internet and do not use Amazon's Kindle. That's right, Kindle, the starting of the book burning, right? As soon as they start sweeping everything from the web, it's gone. And then Amazon fires the full book burn, right? Where they can just, look, folks, they could pull content off the internet. Get your hands on books. Get your hands on old truth, folks. Go to garage sales and buy books. All these old people that are dying and their kids are too stupid to realize what Grandpa had, grab it! Spend a quarter on stuff and start reading it and start looking at things the way they used to be. Old books, folks. Get your hands on the old books and start reading. By the way, books don't destroy your eyes. Backlit screens do. Plant a garden. Learn how to grow food. Go barefoot. Get some electrons. Get some sun through your eyes. Get right with God. Jesus saves, folks. I'm back. I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. Very important. Don't send me any mail unless it's registered or certified, because it's not getting through. Somebody at the Postal Service has taken it upon themselves to intercept my mail. So if you're going to send me anything through the P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834, send it registered. Spend a few extra dollars, will you? It's worth it. And if you want to remain anonymous, find a way to send it with tracking anonymously. You got to track these packages, folks. I cannot have this material and these flash drives ending up in the wrong hands. I need to make sure I get this stuff. All right? That's right. They're intercepting the mail except for what's registered, okay? But it's too late. I got a ton of stuff. Most of the stuff already got through, and you know, they're not going to be able to stop me. I've got enough information to keep these people at bay for another 20 years. Because we got their number, folks, and we know what they're up to. All right? All right. God bless all of you, and it's in the name of Jesus Christ we go. And it's in His name that we operate, and it is with faith in Him that we stand, and it is with the assurances of eternal life that we remain hopeful. And it is with the wisdom imparted to us by Him. And if you want to help me, reach out to me, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. Correspondence, send it only registered, certified, or with tracking. God bless. My email is joeimbriano777@gmail.com. And the websites are thefullertoninformer.com, wifidangers.com, 5gdangers.com, vaxdangers.com, celltowerdangers.com, ymaxdangers.com, cern666.com, disney666.com, nasafraud.com. Boy, I could go on. I got a lot of domains up there. I got a lot of websites running out there. And by the way, if you'd like to help me keep those going, you know what you need to do. God bless all of you, and we will get back in the afternoon, early evening tonight, folks. Welcome back to the Fullerton Informer live stream. We're back up. That loser Dane did not win, folks, and more to come on him. Bye.